The financial world, a realm of high stakes, a game of fortunes won and lost. It's a world where appearances can be deceiving, where trust is a currency easily manipulated. And no one understood this better than Bernie Madoff. He was a maestro of deception, a conductor of a financial orchestra playing a harmonious tune, a tune that lured in unsuspecting investors with promises of incredible returns. But beneath the surface of wealth and success, a darker melody played. This is the story of a man who built his empire on lies, a man who shattered the dreams he helped create. This is the story of Bernie Madoff, a tale of ambition, deception, and the ultimate fall from grace. Bernie Madoff's journey began modestly. From humble beginnings, he climbed the ladder of Wall Street. He possessed an undeniable charisma, a sharp mind, and an ambition that knew no bounds. He mastered the art of the deal. Cultivating an aura of exclusivity, he attracted a prestigious clientele. Celebrities, politicians, and even charitable organizations flocked to him, eager to entrust their wealth to his seemingly Midas touch. Madoff's reputation grew with every success. He became a Wall Street icon, a symbol of financial prowess. What they didn't know was that this success was built on a foundation of sand. Unbeknownst to his unsuspecting investors, Madoff was orchestrating a grand illusion, a Ponzi scheme of unprecedented scale, a scheme so meticulously crafted it would take years to unravel. He promised astronomical returns, unfazed by the fluctuations of the market. Investors, blinded by greed and lulled into a false sense of security, poured their money into his fund. But the truth was far more sinister. Madoff was robbing Peter to pay Paul, using new investors' money to fund the extravagant lifestyles of his early clients. A dangerous game built on a ticking time bomb. Madoff's investment strategy was deceptively simple. He offered consistent returns year after year. Market downturns seemed to have no impact. His clients, accustomed to the volatility of the market, were enthralled. He cultivated an air of exclusivity. Access to his fund was by invitation only. This air of secrecy only served to heighten his allure. He became a financial magician, conjuring profits from thin air. Investors, blinded by their desire for wealth, failed to question the impossible. They entrusted their life savings, their children's college funds, their charitable donations to Madoff. He had become more than a financial advisor. He was a financial deity. Their trust was absolute, their faith unwavering. They were caught in a web of deceit, woven with threads of greed and spun with whispers of guaranteed riches. Little did they know the man they considered a financial savior was leading them down a path of financial ruin. Madoff's influence extended far beyond Wall Street. He had infiltrated the upper echelons of society, his web of connections ensnaring politicians, celebrities, and philanthropists. He was a master networker, effortlessly navigating the world of the elite. He used his influence and connections to draw in new investors. A recommendation from a friend, a tip from a respected colleague. Madoff's reach was insidious, his grasp on the wealthy unrelenting. He even managed to infiltrate the world of philanthropy. Charities, seduced by the promise of endless returns, entrusted their endowments to him. Their good deeds, their missions of hope, unknowingly fueling his fraudulent empire. Madoff had become more than a financial advisor. He was a confidant, a trusted friend. He used their trust, their admiration, to fuel his insatiable appetite for wealth and power. He was building an empire on a foundation of deceit, and the world remained oblivious. For years, Madoff's scheme operated flawlessly. The money flowed in and the fabricated returns flowed out. No one questioned his methods, his success seemingly defying all logic. But beneath the surface of opulence and success, cracks began to appear. Whispers of doubt, suspicions about the legitimacy of his returns started to circulate. Some investors, sensing something amiss, tried to withdraw their funds. Madoff, ever the charmer, reassured them, allaying their fears with a confident smile and promises of even greater returns. Their blind faith, their unwavering trust, prevented them from seeing the truth. They were trapped in a golden cage of their own making, the bars forged from their desire for wealth and their belief in Madoff's magic touch. The whispers of doubt grew louder, fueled by the unease of those who saw through Madoff's facade. Financial analysts, their suspicions aroused by the improbable returns, began to raise red flags. Their warnings, however, fell on deaf ears. Madoff's reputation as a financial wizard, his connections to the powerful, shielded him from scrutiny. He had become too big to fail, too entrenched in the fabric of the financial world. Those who dared to question his methods were dismissed as envious competitors, jealous of his success. The illusion held for a while longer, but the seeds of doubt had been sown. Time was running out. The year 2008. The world watched in disbelief as the financial system teetered on the brink of collapse. Markets plummeted, banks failed, the once unthinkable became reality. Fear gripped investors worldwide. Retirement savings evaporated overnight. The carefully constructed facades of financial stability crumbled like houses of cards. Amidst this chaos, Madoff's investors, shielded from the reality of the markets, remained strangely calm. Their haven, their fortress of wealth, stood seemingly unscathed. But the storm had arrived at his doorstep. The illusion of steady returns, the promise of financial security, was about to be washed away by a tide of fear and desperation. The foundations of Madoff's empire were about to crumble. As the financial crisis deepened, Madoff's investors, gripped by panic, sought to withdraw their funds. The requests, once a trickle, became a torrent. The game was up. The man who had promised financial security, who had claimed to have the answers, had no answers. The money, their money, was gone, vanished into the ether of his elaborate scheme. The truth, long buried under layers of lies and deceit, came crashing down. Madoff, the financial wizard, the trusted advisor, was nothing more than a con man, a thief who had preyed on the trust and dreams of thousands. The revelation sent shockwaves across the globe. The financial world, already reeling from the crisis, was shaken to its core. The man who had seemed untouchable, who had operated with impunity, had finally been exposed. The news of Madoff's confession spread like wildfire. The world watched in disbelief as the man once hailed as a financial genius was exposed as a common criminal. The authorities, slow to act, were now in a race against time. The courtroom became a stage for a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. Victims, stripped of their life savings, their dreams shattered, confronted Madoff, their voices filled with anger, betrayal, and despair. Their stories, heartbreaking and infuriating, painted a picture of the devastating human cost of Madoff's greed. Families torn apart, retirements lost, futures stolen. The consequences of his deception were far-reaching and devastating. Madoff, once a master of the universe, now sat in the dock, a prisoner of his own making. His empire, built on lies, had crumbled, leaving behind a trail of financial ruin and shattered lives. Section 4. Justice will be served. The world waited with bated breath for the sentence. Madoff, facing the consequences of his actions, stood silently as the judge read his fate. 150 years, a lifetime behind bars, a symbolic sentence, a message that even the most powerful and well-connected are not above the law. Justice, though it could not erase the pain or restore the lost fortunes, had been served. Madoff, the man who had almost gotten away with it all, would spend the rest of his days paying for his crimes. Section 1. The walls close in. From the gilded cage of his penthouse to the cold, harsh reality of a prison cell, Bernie Madoff's world contracted. The man who once wielded power on Wall Street was now just another inmate. Gone were the trappings of wealth, the luxurious lifestyle, the adulation of the masses. In their place, the deafening silence of confinement, the company of fellow criminals, the weight of his crimes pressing down on him. Every day the reality of his situation sank in a little deeper. No more lavish dinners, no more private jets, no more manipulating the markets. Just the relentless monotony of prison life, a constant reminder of his downfall. His empire of lies had crumbled, leaving behind a wreckage of shattered lives and broken dreams. And he, the architect of this destruction, was left to confront the consequences of his actions. Section 2. A life defined by deceit. Behind bars, Madoff had ample time to reflect on his life, a life built on a foundation of deceit. From the early days of his career, the desire to win, to amass wealth had consumed him. He had rationalized his actions, convincing himself that he was simply playing the game, that everyone was doing it. The ends, he believed, justified the means. But the truth, the undeniable truth, was that he had become a slave to his own greed. He had sacrificed his integrity, his family, his freedom, all for the sake of wealth and the illusion of success. Now, stripped of everything, he was forced to confront the emptiness of his existence. The man who had once seemed invincible, untouchable, was now a broken man, haunted by the ghosts of his past. Even within the confines of prison, Madoff could not escape the long shadow of his crimes. The news from the outside world was a constant reminder of the devastation he had wrought. Stories of financial ruin, of lives shattered, of families torn apart, filtered through the prison walls, each one a searing indictment of his actions. He became a subject of fascination and revulsion, his name synonymous with greed, deceit, and betrayal. The weight of his infamy, the knowledge of the suffering he had caused, followed him like a curse. There was no escaping the truth. He was a pariah, a symbol of everything that was wrong with the financial system, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. Years turned into a decade, and still Madoff's crimes continued to cast a long shadow. The financial world, forever changed by his deceit, grappled with the fallout of his actions. New regulations were enacted designed to prevent another Madoff from emerging. But the scars of his betrayal, the erosion of trust in the financial system, ran deep. The victims, their lives forever altered, struggled to rebuild. Some found solace in support groups, sharing their stories of loss and resilience. Others, forever haunted by their experience, remained trapped in a cycle of anger and despair. Bernie Madoff's legacy, a toxic blend of greed, deceit, and betrayal, served as a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition. Life behind bars was a harsh contrast to the opulent world Madoff had built on lies. The years, once filled with the thrill of the deal and the trappings of wealth, now stretched before him, monotonous and unforgiving. His health, once robust, deteriorated. The physical confines of prison mirrored the prison of his own making, his past transgressions a heavy weight on his conscience. He became a ghost of his former self. The charisma, the charm that had drawn so many into his web of deceit, faded, replaced by a haunted look in his eyes. The man who had once controlled millions, who had commanded attention with a single phone call, was now at the mercy of the prison system, his fate out of his hands. In his isolation, Madoff sought solace in books, immersing himself in the very subjects he had so blatantly disregarded: ethics, morality, the principles of a just society. He wrote letters seeking forgiveness from those he had wronged, pouring out his remorse, his regret onto paper. But the words rang hollow, a feeble attempt to atone for the irreparable harm he had inflicted. His pleas for understanding, for a measure of compassion, were met with anger, with scorn, with the bitter sting of betrayal. The victims of his crimes, their lives shattered, their trust broken, had no forgiveness to offer. He was a man alone, trapped in a prison of his own making, his past sins an unbreakable chain, binding him to a legacy of pain and suffering. Outside the prison walls, the world moved on. The financial crisis, the shockwaves of Madoff's deceit, began to fade into memory. New scandals emerged, new villains captured the headlines. The world, it seemed, had a short memory, eager to forget the pain, the anger, the sense of betrayal that Madoff had inflicted. But for the victims, the scars remained. The financial ruin, the emotional toll, the shattered dreams, these were wounds that time could not heal. They carried the burden of Madoff's betrayal, a constant reminder of the fragility of trust, the devastating consequences of blind faith. Their lives, forever altered, served as a silent testament to the enduring impact of his crimes. As Madoff's health continued to decline, the reality of his mortality set in. The man who had once seemed invincible, who had believed he could outwit the system, was now facing his own mortality. There would be no miraculous escape, no last-minute reprieve. The end, when it came, was quiet, anticlimactic. His death, barely a blip on the radar of the outside world, brought little closure to those he had wronged. The man who had built his empire on lies, who had shattered the lives of so many, was gone. But the lessons of his deceit, the importance of vigilance, the enduring power of truth lived on. Bernie Madoff's downfall marked the end of an era of unchecked greed, of blind faith in the markets, of a system that seemed to reward risk-takers while ignoring the potential for catastrophic consequences. His crimes exposed the vulnerabilities of a system that had become too big, too complex, too trusting. The world watched in stunned disbelief as the man who had embodied the American dream, the self-made millionaire, the financial wizard, was revealed to be a fraud. The public outrage, the sheer scale of his deceit, forced a reckoning. Regulators, once asleep at the wheel, were jolted awake, scrambling to enact reforms to prevent a repeat of such a massive fraud. The Madoff scandal served as a wake-up call, a stark reminder that even in the most sophisticated financial markets, trust must be earned, not assumed. The human cost of Madoff's crimes was immeasurable. Thousands of investors, from retirees to celebrities to charitable organizations, saw their life savings wiped out. Families were torn apart, dreams were shattered, and a fundamental belief in the fairness of the system was shaken to its core. The American dream, for so many, had become a nightmare. Yet amidst the wreckage, there were stories of resilience, of communities coming together to support those who had lost everything. Victims, bonded by their shared experience, found strength in each other, offering support and sharing the burden of their collective grief. Madoff's legacy is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed and the importance of vigilance. It is a story that continues to resonate, a reminder that even in the wake of devastation, the human spirit endures, seeking justice, demanding accountability, and striving to rebuild.